Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into something seriously fascinating today, mastering what Machiavelli understood as silent power. We are exploring the concept of the mirror of the void and how you can make your personal boundaries totally, utterly unshakable. Let's get into it and see how changing your reaction actually changes your reality. So, have you ever felt like someone was just poking at you? Just waiting for you to flinch? We've all been there, right? It's that awful, visceral discomfort you get from a slow text reply that's literally meant to make your stomach turn. Or maybe it's a subtle dig at a dinner party. Or that one colleague who just always seems to be testing you, looking for a crack in your armor. When that happens, your absolute first instinct is probably to push back, to explain yourself or get defensive. But actually, scratch that. I want to completely flip your preconceived notions about defending yourself right now. Because there's this incredibly clinical, frankly devastating observation from our source material today. The second you react, you've already lost. I really want you to let that sink in for a second. You see, most of us think that by arguing, we're defending our territory, right? Like we're winning the exchange. But the brutal reality of social dynamics is that reaction is actually surrender. Which brings us to Section 1, the physics of social energy. Think of it like a giant puzzle. You have this dynamic between the archer, who is projecting chaos, and the target, who absorbs the arrow. When someone disrespects you or tests your boundaries, they are essentially throwing kinetic force right in your direction. If you argue back, you haven't deflected it. No, you've actually caught the arrow. You've absorbed their force and let them alter your internal weather. You kind of become a vessel for their poison. And in the world of power dynamics, doing that signals that their opinion has power over you. It makes you predictable. And hey, this isn't just some abstract theory. Consider this number, 400. Our source actually cites a researcher who interviewed over 400 women. These are people who observe the brutal, everyday reality of attraction and power dynamics. He wanted to pinpoint the exact, precise moment a person becomes completely invisible and loses all their power in an interaction. The answer? It happens the very second you start broadcasting need at maximum volume. Think about it. When you double text out of pure anxiety just because someone hasn't replied in 6 hours, or when you over-explain yourself to someone who just threw a subtle insult your way. You're signaling a total lack of an internal center. You're basically proving that you're desperately reaching outward for confirmation of your own value. You're telling them, hey, I don't have a center, so I really, really need you to give me one. Let's move to Section 2, the mirror of the void. So let's break down exactly how you execute this in real life. Imagine someone tries to belittle you in front of a group. Instead of your old self jumping in with a bunch of excuses, you're going to use a step-by-step framework called the architect. Step 1, pause for 4 seconds. Now, in a tense conversation, 4 seconds feels like an absolute eternity. Step 2, adopt a flat, completely clinical tone, zero emotion. And step 3, agree with the absurdity of what they just said. Let me give you a really specific, brilliant script from the source to show you how this actually sounds. Say a colleague snarks at you, you really dropped the ball on this project. Okay, you pause for 4 seconds, and then in a totally flat tone, you deliver this line. It is catastrophic, isn't it? I'm surprised the building is still standing. Do you see what just happened there? You didn't defend yourself at all. You took their little insult and blew it up into a cartoon. By agreeing with it, you literally pull the chair right out from under them while they're trying to sit down. By doing this, you elevate your psychological advantage and induce what's known as ontological shock. This is a fascinating state of total confusion where the attacker actually questions if their words even have mass. And that's simply due to your complete lack of reaction. You leave them completely stunned because you remain entirely unbothered. You gave them a mirror of the void instead of a target. All right, Section 3, becoming the watchtower. To really grasp this, we have to look at the concept of the panopticon. It's this fascinating prison design where a central guard observes all the inmates without ever being seen themselves. It's a really powerful architectural metaphor for how we should handle social provocation. When you become the watchtower, you observe the chaos of others without ever becoming a participant in it. Think about the difference between the anxious participant and the clinical scientist. Your exhausting old self is the anxious participant, right? Fighting in the emotional trenches, catching arrows, and desperately trying to manage everyone's feelings. But the watchtower acts like a clinical scientist observing a manipulator like a rat in a maze. You aren't in the maze with them. You are safely looking down at it. And this brings us to what the source calls diagnosing the patient.
When you're provoked, try using these specific phrases. I notice your voice is elevated. Or, interesting, your mind went to that word. Or even, does saying that provide relief? Notice what you're doing here. You aren't fighting them. You are diagnosing them. Nothing humiliates a manipulator faster than being viewed as hysterical while you just stand there like a marble statue. Maintaining this flat, clinical tone essentially signals your biological superiority over someone who is entirely emotionally deregulated.
Which leads us to Section 4, building your internal citadel. The core directive here is pretty stark, but it's absolutely crucial. Destroy the inner slave. I really want to challenge you right now. We all have a part of ourselves that craves outside approval, a part that feels compelled to fill the silence with noise just to manage our own anxiety. Well, you have to eliminate that part of yourself. Your emotional state absolutely must originate from within, not from a random text notification or some backhanded comment. Because true power, it isn't about shouting your boundaries at people. In fact, a boundary is a silence so heavy it makes the other person doubt their own existence. It's really about becoming that centered marble statue that simply deletes toxic energy just by refusing to engage with it. I want you to remember this highly memorable, visceral metaphor from the source material. A wolf doesn't bark back at a chihuahua. I love that. A person of high value simply never manages other people's chaos. If your value is determined by your own internal discipline and your own code, the world will instinctively stop testing you. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. Ask yourself honestly, is your stability contingent on their resolution? Do you need them to understand you or apologize to you for you to be fundamentally okay? If you want to build an unshakable empire of self-command, the answer must be no. Stop playing defense. Stay centered, embrace the void, and let them exhaust themselves against your silence. Thanks for joining me for today's explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.